It's two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? Gregory, it's so great to be with you again. There you are. You got the whole world in your hands almost back there.
Absolutely. I thought it was the most appropriate one.
Yes. Expanding consciousness, etc. And we're just talking about Gandhi, or my God, I should know by now what's the right pronunciation. But talking about how I just got a piece of. He's right behind me. He's got our back in consciousness and everything else, and I'm so grateful for that. And anyway, so it's kind of a little rambly going into this, but he is a force of. Perhaps he is a good, sort of a good example of blend of masculine and feminine energy, though, for sure. Maybe it was very, very tough, but very compassionate, loving, all those sorts of things, very intuitive. He did so many things based just on his intuition, and oh my God. So he's a great example. We'll maybe reference that more and more as we go along. Gregory, I just wanted to have you on to, just two guys talking here, and to just really explore what we're dealing with here. I'd like to actually start where you were talking about that we're undergoing a major shift of consciousness, but it seems like that's been going on forever, right? It's like nowadays, like to me, it seems like almost forever. As you get older, though, I will admit, right? Like 10 years, whatever, that's like a year or whatever.
Absolutely. Time is going ever faster. It's accelerating. So, okay.
That's brand new at the same time. So, what do you perceive? I mean, there's people that talk about all different things. 2012 was the big thing and all that. And we're starting to shift into the feminine and all that. So one of the reasons why I'm having these conversations with guys is the idea of like, the women need to take over, the feminine's in. In fact, we'll get it so good that we don't even need men. We'll be able to create our own new being off a petri dish or whatever. Just get the men out of it, So what do you perceive as happening with this big shift with the feminine energy? The way people say feminine's taking over and all this sort of thing, and
Well, first of all, what we have to recognize is that the feminine and masculine energies are within everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not as if I'm masculine and male and I'm 100% masculine energy, or I'm 100% female energy. And that's where, if I go back to the women's lib movement, which is that 70s, 60s, something like that, there is, we must be better than the men, rather than actually accepting that the male has certain attributes, the female has certain attributes. And my belief is that this juncture in human evolution, what we're doing is we're merging the two together. Mm-hmm. Now, that's really moving from the patriarchy, which was kicked in roughly 4000 BC, something like that. So we've had, call it 6,000 odd years with the patriarchy, when it's been male, and I'll come on in a moment to what I think that the masculine as opposed to feminine are, but the male energy has been very much about control, and therefore you do what you're told to do, whereas the female energy is more gentle. And so we're moving back to the matriarchy, because the matriarchy existed before the patriarchy. And okay, at the times of Atlantis, so I'm going way back now, the matriarchy and the patriarchy coexisted. And so as Atlantis disappeared, the patriarchy was stepping forward. And so what happened was a lot of the technologies, the ideas, the beliefs were hidden because it was felt that the patriarchy would misuse a lot of those technologies, etc. Now, what we're doing is we're bringing into this new era. Some have called it the age of Aquarius. Well, that's part of the astrological move as well. So there are various themes that are coming in that making this an intense period of transition for humanity, not male, not female, humanity. And therefore, as I said, it's, to me, it's bringing together the masculine and the feminine. Now, to do that, we need to recognize there are differences. The masculine has certain attributes and the female has certain attributes. And the masculine has logic, reason, action, firmness, survival, loyalty, strength, and rationality. And if we were to look at those in the sense of what we've recognized for the last few thousand years, in terms of history, the history books and all the rest of it, that's been the patriarchy. You're firm, you must do what you're told, etc. Whereas if we're now moving into a period when there's coexistence and acceptance between the two, then we bring in the feminine energies, which are intuition, nurturing, healing, gentleness, expression, wisdom, patience, emotions, flexibility. And if we're in a period of transition, what's the most important thing? Flexibility. So that's what I see as unfolding at the moment.
Yeah, there's so much unfolding, right? But that's definitely a part of what's unfolding, and with the balance of masculine, feminine, and all that stuff. That's just fascinating. I never heard anybody say that before. Heard that before about Atlantis is actually all destroyed because these crazy guys are not going to know how to use it right, and we're going to probably destroy the world. And that idea is back again.
Absolutely. That's why I find fascinating to put the history, so to speak, in the context of what we see going on at the moment. And if you look upon it as this is a theme and this is a cycle, yes, I could talk probably for another hour about the different cycles that are going on at the moment, but there are various cycles that are all coming together, which is why if we go back to the prophecies of the Hopi, the Incas, etc., they've all indicated that this first part of the 21st century is going to be very intense because it's transformation. And do we like transformation? No. And the human species is the most conservative species on this planet. We just basically want it to be as it is at the moment. Whereas, no, it's going to transform, it's going to change. And therefore, the transformation process, we at an emotional level are resisting, but it's going to happen. Whether we like it or not, change is happening. And therefore, I come back to what I was saying about the feminine. We need to be flexible. Whereas the classic masculine is straight down. Whereas we need the feminine energy to come in to say, okay, that's how it was yesterday. Today is different, and tomorrow's going to be different again. So we need to be able to go with the flow, or whatever other expressions one wants to use.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, if you listen to some people, right, wherever era they're from, usually they're like, yeah, there were better days in the past. It'd be great to get back to where we were.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Here's the thing, Gregory, I want to say this, right? I want to say,
looking back.
Right. What I want to say is, like, I always ask those people, so literally, if I could drop you right back into the 50s right now, at the age you are right now and everything, you would be totally happy and you'd prefer that. Oh, I guess if you put it that way, no.
Exactly.
They don't really want that.
No, very much so. But then the mindset has to shift, and instead of looking backwards, which is all right. We've just had a full moon on Wednesday, which was a very intense full moon, and people I've been talking to for the few days before and a few days afterwards have all talked about the intensity of this moment. And that full moon was in Pluto. Now, Pluto is basically about exposing the underworld, which means within us. So all the things that we've buried deep within us, the bright light of the full moon, it was really a wonderful full moon, was shining on all that underworld. Why? So that we could bring it up. It wants to be addressed and cleared out. That then leaves us not looking backwards, but looking into what we can create for the future. And that's what I see as the real challenge for humanity, is what is it we really desire to create? And then that's where I come back to the mixture between the masculine and the feminine. It's not one or the other. It's a combination of the two. And so within the feminine, the classic, if one goes back into history, the wise woman, because she was using her wisdom. Where did the wisdom come from? Intuition. What's this era of the age of Aquarius about? It's about connection to the creator, connection to source, connection to each of us. Therefore, what do we use? We don't necessarily use emails or anything of that nature. We, in essence, use intuition, because intuition is about feelings. Feelings are difficult to misinterpret. Whereas words, I can use the same words as you do, Daniel, and we have a different meaning to it. And therefore, my belief is, and I said this some time ago, is that we're moving more towards feeling connection rather than word, etc. connection. Now, where's the feeling come from? Back to the feminine. And so that's why I see we're part of this transition process, which is underway at the moment, to recognize and bring the two together so that we can evolve into the new human, because that's the process, I believe, which is underway, which is Homo luminous, the illuminated human, rather than the Homo sapiens, which was all about the rational thinking. You know, size of the brain mattered, and what you do this and do that. That was the Homo sapiens. Well, that's, I believe, on the way out, as we bring in this new combination and we create the new earth, in that sense, the new beginning, the new world that we want to see. So it's exciting times, even though none of us like the change and transition.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as they say, what the caterpillar, when they're in the middle of the transition, I was saying, like, I'm having the best time ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
God, this is horrible. So yeah,
we are in the typical chrysalis process, where we haven't quite left behind, we haven't quite emerged, and that's why I see all this transition going on around us. All right, I'm not being political here, but if we look at what's happening in Ukraine with Russia, I would say that's classic patriarchy. I'm in control, etc. Yeah. And then what's very interesting is the response to Ukraine has been collaboration and cooperation, not just to leave them alone, but to assist. Yes, you can put in all sorts of other takes and so on, but if you just look at it from that point of view, one's patriarchy and one's collaboration.
Yeah,
it's a typical symbol of the transition that's underway.
Yeah. Instead of I mean, it could go to like, yeah, it's funny. A lot of people are like, well, this will turn into World War III and everything. I don't really buy those stories personally. I mean, you're real intuitive, you're a shaman person and everything. And Like, no, I don't think so. I think it's, we're hopefully at least, ready to try to address things in new ways and not to go down those paths. But yeah, I mean, it's classic in that you've got the masculine energy, saying kind of like, if I want you, I'll take you,
Yeah, absolutely,
thing. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's very,
And as I say, it's not making a political point. I'm just trying to look at it from the broader perspective.
yeah.
What are these themes? What's going on?
Yeah, and we're looking at that saying, "Oh God, that's so old. What's going on over there?" Right? Like that's how people perceive it these days. It's not like it's totally different perspective. And in the past, we would have seen a different. Oh, they're just let's bomb them right away. Let's kick them right back. Like there's all these different ways of handling things, and we're looking at like, okay, what's the best way we can approach this as more of the overall collective mindset than all the other ideas, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, I love what you talk about with the whole Homo sapiens and Homo lumius and all whatever whatever the terms are, but like that whole transitional period. It's great that we have had the ability to reason and do the things we've done has been phenomenal, right? I mean, it's been able to bring us so many things. A lot of times I think people go too carried away, read everything and it's all bad. And like, yeah, let me drop you in back into the 1600s or something, or even way before that, like in the BC era. Let me drop you into a life there versus now, and then tell me how bad what we've done is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
People can talk a lot of stuff until like you face the reality. No, it's things are far greater and far better than ever before. No doubt about it on the average for everybody. And so, but yeah, this balancing though, it's very, very interesting because I think as we get into what it's like to be a conscious male and during this time, then it's like we've had to move through this time together. I mean, you're a little bit older than I am, but either way, we've all had to kind of move through this transition as men, leading the way. If you're like most of the men I've been interviewing, from a young age, you're like, hey, things aren't right, like there's something a little off here in the world. And, like I don't buy these ideas of what it means to be a man or if we did buy into them pretty quickly, at some point fairly early in life, we were like, no, there's something wrong with this. I'm trying to fit into this and this isn't real. This isn't true or right. So So for you, Gregory, what was it like? I mean, I don't know what era you grew up in. I was more of a like 70s, 80s kid kind of time frame. But what was it like? What did it mean to be a man? And what was that like for you? And how did you deal with that? And how did you start to kind of move through those stereotypes ultimately? But I'm just wondering like what they were during your time.
Well, if I go back, Daniel, to at age 7, I was hospitalized and had my tonsils removed. And whilst I was in hospital, my father didn't come to see me. And I was in for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, whatever it was at that time. My mother did. And then whilst I was in hospital, somewhere the belief was generated that to attract the love of my father, I needed to be a successful businessman. And as is always the case, one's not aware of these things until one's looking back with hindsight. Mm-hmm. And so I went through school and all the rest of it. And as I was leaving university, the choice was either I went into finance or law to be a businessman. And I chose finance. And that then led me to the point where I was the CEO of a public technology company in London listing and all the rest of it. And it's growing and done, in my view, a very exciting way forward. And then I had intense back pain. And whilst I had that intense back pain, I realized that position I was in which is what I've been focusing on since I was 7, was not actually my passion. And so that's why I had the intense back pain. There was conflict within me between, should we say simplistically, the left side and the right side of my body. The left is more male, the right is more female. I'm talking about energies rather than anything else, and certainly not the physical bit. And so I then chose to step away from that position of being the successful businessman, CEO, etc., to follow my passion, which, as you mentioned a moment ago, Daniel, was to act more as the shaman. Now, I didn't understand fully what it meant at that time, but to be more balanced, more in harmony with what I was feeling. And again, with hindsight, when I was writing and so on, I was always left-handed, left side, logic, masculine. So I had to be taught at school how to write with my right hand, because that's what the structure, the system said you had to write with your right hand. Okay, so I ended up being what's called ambidextrous. In other words, I could use both hands for writing, and I was a bit of a complex character in terms of using left and right. But it was then that I realized, because all the scars on my body, because of various accidents over the years, were on my right side. So I was basically using the feminine side and not allowing it to step out. So it had scars on my arms and my torso and legs and all sorts of things. So it was then, as I appreciated that I really needed to be following my passion, that I began to investigate more the left side, the right side, what it was to be a shaman, and then the balance, bringing harmony into life, etc. And then I realized that actually what I'd been focused on was not me. Me was the balanced individual, the one that enjoyed using wisdom rather than just knowledge, just information, that enjoyed healing, that enjoyed nurturing. Now, was I a particularly good father? With a bit of hindsight, I would say probably not, because I was so focused on being the successful businessman rather than being the nurturing father. So if I would do a second round, I think I'd be a very different father, but that's history. And so it was then that as I appreciated more and more about who I really was, that I allowed myself to make that transition from being totally left-sided to being a mixture of the left and the right, which is where I am today. And so that's then allowed me to step into more of the being I am, rather than the person that grew up and was a good sportsman and did all the usual male things, etc. Which I enjoy, don't mistake me, but it's probably about, so I probably made this change somewhere when I was about 40, to actually step out of that masculine male energy, to then be more the person that, and as the exploration completed, no, I'm still exploring who I really am. But I've made that transition to recognize that actually my abilities, gifts, and skills are far greater and far more enjoyable than ever. It was that focused businessman, successful or not, didn't make any difference. It was the focus, and therefore I wasn't allowing in all that's available and the beauty of Mother Earth, etc., etc.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah, I love how you talk about the right and left side and what you were experiencing. on your path with that, and as part of it, and then what happened with your dad, what came up for you later in life, you start realizing, oh my God, this is how this happened. I start realizing
Absolutely.
that's what created it all in the first place. And yeah, I mean, that is very interesting when we think about our relationship with our dad and what we saw from our dad, and in this case for men. And what were they doing? In some cases, people have situations where their dad wasn't around or wasn't around very much. Like my dad was around a lot during the winter because he had a lawn maintenance business, but during the summer, a lot of times when I was younger anyway, he was very busy. He was working very late. And I remember, the kid, I would be like, where is he? He's still not home, like, where is he? So in your mind, you're like, I guess to be a man, you got to work, you just work. You just keep working for your family, right?
Exactly. And that's the obligation that one took on as a male. My purpose is to go out and earn the bread to look after the family.
Yeah.
Whereas that's where I find, coming back to the broader themes, this change to digital nomads. It means I can work from anywhere and don't need to be so focused on going to the office. Well, when did the office start? Industrial Revolution. So what's it been going? It's really only since the 17th century. And why did everybody have to come in? Because the 9 to 5 was when the factory wanted to open. And so that has had a couple hundred years of habit forming. And so we have these phrases, 9 to 5 and going to work, etc. Whereas before that, it didn't exist. So in terms of humanity's evolution, masculine, feminine, we're going back, I believe, to the opportunity to actually use our intellect, our creativity, etc. And we don't need to go to an office to do that. Just as another example of the transition I see underway. Yeah,
I mean, and the idea is like with how we even eat, right? You get a breakfast, lunch, dinner. That's how we do it.
Absolutely.
Before that, people didn't even have those ideas, or like often. I mean, it depended on who you were, I suppose, but it's more like, well, we're hungry. Let's just take a break and eat.
I don't know, but I've heard many people say, well, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Why was that? Because that's what the mother said before she sent the children off to school, and she didn't know how they were going to be fed or whatever. So you must have your breakfast. Well, actually, physiologically, it's not the most important meal. But, okay.
Now they're like, don't eat a breakfast. That's killing you. It's so funny how it gets turned right around eventually. I mean, go through those cycles too, but it's all very fascinating. And it's fascinating things that so-called happen to us, right? Like with mentioned about your back. And, I think when you were on my show, we talked about my back too, or whatever, and the history there. And, but yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I went through more of a yin phase, like when the left side of my body started having problems. If I go too masculine, I guess when I think about it, I've experienced it more on the right side. Okay, you're out of balance is the point. Like the last year and a half, 2 years, or whatever it's been, but like I haven't had problems really. So it's like I've been, and I've noticed like I'm very much more integrated with both now. So it's totally fascinating, because we'll say, well, I know what created my back problem. I went ahead and I leaned over and I did it awkwardly and my back went out, It's always the illusion that there's something on the physical level. It's what really was what caused it, when it really isn't that. Because if you look at it more deeply, you always find like, no, it's an energetic pattern. It's not so much about a physical thing. Somebody could do the wrong thing physically forever and never have an injury. I mean, like it happens all the time. So it's a little bit of an illusion.
Well, yes, to me, you see, we're always looking for an excuse or somebody to blame that's outside of ourselves.
Right.
Whereas the answer is always within.
Right.
It's something we haven't done, etc. So that's the cause of our events going through life. And so to me, the back to Homo luminous is there as a balanced individual, masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
We're creative because the feminine side is more creative,
Mm-hmm.
because it's allowing in intuition.
Yeah.
So that intuition comes in, and that's how we can be more creative in the way we live our life and the way we create the new earth, or whatever we like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's the beauty of the challenge we're facing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, yeah, for all of us, often, and like for me, it's a challenge in how I conduct myself in my life and business. Okay, in this moment, all right, I know, like sometimes if I get really sharp and strong in my energy, then I'm going to get what I want or sort this mess out or whatever, however it looks to me. And then again, I teach just the opposite on other occasions. I'm like, oh, there's far more power in the connected energy and just allowing the answers to just unfold, So there's both of that. And then, so if the mind tries to navigate it, it gets lost. It's like, well, what is it? Do we slam up against the reality and make what happen we want to make happen? Or do we relax and just let it kind of unfold and nurture it? And it's like black and white thinking that the mind does, right? Where it's not, right? It's not, from my perspective, it's not an either or. It's, if I were to conceptualize it in a way here, it's like, well, I think it's more like the presence and the feminine and the flow leads the way, and then where you need those accent points, masculine comes in, boom, let's put order to that, right? That's how I can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely right, Daniel, because the problem with relying on the head is that it only knows what it has experienced, whereas if you allow in the feminine intuition, you have no idea what else can be brought into play. And that's why the true creativity, and if you look at the true creative people in human history, most of them, well, all of them, have had a big place for intuition. They've gone for a walk, or they've sat down, or they've just created some space for things to come in. Right, so that's, now I understand. And so that's where the creativity has come from.
Yeah, sometimes the whole thing all at once, right? One big download, they knew it all in one moment, right? Because they're
open. Absolutely. Rather than dunk, and miss out a couple of key points or whatever. And so that's why I'm excited in that sense. Whereas when we bring the masculine and the feminine together, we allow in the creativity, and so then we can be the new human in that sense, where we are allowing all this connection to the creator to flow through us with all sorts of insights we have no idea about. But we have to initiate it in the sense of, I'm now ready, I have some ideas or something to allow in the access, because what people often overlook is that this is a free will universe. Free will means that we need to be part of the choosing. It's not just going to be provided to us. So if I choose to open up, it will come. I mean, it's all sitting there waiting to flow, but I have to make the choice, and then it will appear.
Yeah, you have to be open enough. I totally agree with that part for sure too. And yeah, when we just allow ourselves to be open, like again, getting back to the Gandhi thing right behind me, I was thinking, well, I could use something new in my office, put up on the wall. Within a week or two, like this just came into my life, right? So did I intuit it was coming my way? Did I have the idea? Did I decide? Who knows? But it was an experience of, I had an awareness, okay, it's time for things to be mixed up back here. And all of a sudden, then it came to me, and that happens all the time. And I had no conscious will around trying to manifest it or come up with something, I'm going to figure it out. I was open to it. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And then it just shows up. I find that happens a lot in life. Like if you're just open and hear about what you want, right?
But you see, that to me, Daniel, is because you've balanced the masculine and the feminine. So you've allowed in the feminine intuition, the creativity, etc., rather than this is what I must do, which is the way we've grown up. The systems are all designed around this is what you have to do. I mean, so there are all sorts of changes that will flow from this transition, because really all of our life in whatever form is being restructured. And so it isn't just the masculine and feminine, but this is one of the key themes, that we need connection. The feminine is more connected than the masculine, and therefore we open up to what untold future that we would like to create for ourselves.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of just touching back on what you were talking about with your journey. So you basically you tried to fit into that mold, and you had successes, you had some joy and pleasure in it, but ultimately a whole load of pain.
Absolutely.
So, like, okay, the change is needed. Time to shift. And because we're taught, again, as men, it's okay, it's an unspoken thing that happened with your dad. That's what happens with those relationships. It's like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. So your dad could have came to you every day and says, it's all about spend a lot of time with your kids and being nurturing with yourself and lots of me time and all this. He could have said it all day long. But if he's not doing it, again, like that we were never, we always are going to take on more of the imprinting of what our parents are doing, and then it has a huge influence. It informs us, like, oh, that's how we're supposed to do it. And it's a tough pattern. It's definitely huge conditioning that a lot of us are in, men and women. Men, it's like, we've talked again on here about, and then it's about the no feelings thing too. Like, if there's any feelings, it should be like anger and let's get it done. And like, none of the other stuff, crying and all that stuff. Well, what a waste of time. Yeah, right. You're weak. Yeah.
But I've said to quite a few of the clients that I've helped through their own transformation, let the tears flow. And I have one or two males that, oh, I don't want to. And then finally the tears flow and suddenly, oh.
Right. It's a huge relief. Huge.
Yes, because that's the body's natural reaction when he wants to be rid of something.
Yes.
And what people forget is that tears of joy as well as tears of sadness.
Right.
And so it's just an expressing that emotion. And so allow the tears to flow, rather than the way, again, as you were saying, we've been conditioned. So
toughen up. Come on, let's go. Like, we don't have time for all that. I mean, I've had a lot of emotions, always, and really recently with some things in my life, it just, the tears will just flow, and the emotions will just flow, and it's it's not what we would prefer, right? In terms of our minds would be like, oh, this isn't pleasant, I feel depressed, how do I get out of it? Might want to think like that. But the more we can allow ourselves to experience what's coming up, then it's a cleansing, and it opens you to more of the bandwidth of good vibration too, is what we
absolutely. And that to me is that one of the challenges that we face in creating the new earth. It's back to what I was saying. You've got a balance. Therefore, we, as the good old male, we have to adjust to the new, so that we create the new masculine. And the new feminine combination, rather than just go down that one path that we were conditioned onto. Right.
Because the idea does devolve into sometimes that the patriarchy, therefore all men are all idiots, they got it all wrong, you're all bad.
Absolutely.
To me, that's a very masculine kind of solution. Just get rid of you. Just shut them all down. Just shut up. Now we're talking now, and that's a very masculine energy. So it's funny, like we're trying to counter the masculine with masculine energy.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, we have to be better than.
Yeah.
Which isn't the purpose. The purpose is combining the two together.
Yeah.
Because there are differences and they could be used in different circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And so why just think it's a one space solution?
Right. Yeah, totally. Like opening up. Yeah, just it's funny how we just so many people, men and women, just have a hard time with just being open and present and just letting things unfold in the way that seems true in the moment, like just being more in the moment with things. But the idea is, oh, that could never work. We have to make a lot of plans, and we have to figure it all out. And if we don't know something, we might die. Like survival instinct kicks in.
Absolutely right. And so it comes back to my comment earlier about feelings. If we allow the feelings, I feel I need to do something, then where's that come from? That's come from within us, and we're following that. Doesn't matter it's right or wrong. That's the feeling I have that I am going to express something or whatever it might be. And so that's the real human rather than the conditioned human that we're looking to replace.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I love about I don't full-heartedly believe any system, but like human design, for example. I love human design because it points to the need for the vast majority of us to just respond to life rather than trying to drive everything, right? Like that's the strategy, like for most people. It's just respond to life as things show up, just kind of trust your intuition and do what seems right in the moment.
Yes. but it's back to the system has been set up to produce little boxes, and we're in a box,
right?
And so that's all the system knows. You need to be in a box, and this is therefore the way. And whether it's the education system or the parental system, etc., all of that's conditioning to go down one road. Whereas actually, as a human being, one of our prime driving forces is curiosity. We like to look at different things. We like to explore and find out, etc., etc., instead of being stuck in a box where we can't look out.
Right.
So that's what I believe is part of this new emergence that is taking place as we speak.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like the background, for those that see this on a video, like you see the background, you see stars and everything around the planet. And that's what we've missed, for a long time. I mean, yeah, and our ancient ancestors spent a lot of time looking up at the stars, and we forget how, it's not a small box at all. Look around. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Look around. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, because our world is beautiful when we look upon it with the eyes of beauty rather than look upon it as eyes of fear or scared or whatever it might be. Right. And if we look upon it as pain, then that's what we see. Whereas if we look upon it as beauty and curiosity and etc., then that's how we view life.
Yeah, I've got a really interesting question. One of my last questions for today. It's a big topic though, but feel free to just give the snippets that you can. There's an idea that, humanity, this is a wild idea, so people listening in might be like, all right, this is where it gets really weird. But there's an idea that, we were created by other beings, right? From aliens or however you want to look at it. So other beings that came in, it was not just pure source, just dropped us here alone. Yeah. So that idea is significant in that the idea was that we were created as this idea of a slave race, right? So so we're very programmable that way. Okay, we control them, make sure that they'll be able to take orders and everything, and then at some point the idea is they left us here, and then they gave us some. All of a sudden that's where we had this rapid evolution all at once that people note in history with our brains, They upgraded us and said, all right, you're on your own, I'll give you an upgrade. So I'm just giving the basics of it, but I don't know if you buy into any of that stuff or not. I'm curious, but I think that
Okay, probably you haven't heard.
big one.
There were 5 interventions
Mhm.
in terms of human evolution,
Mhm.
and so it started with the classic, the whales or whatever emerging out of the water, and
Mhm.
so from there were interventions to help humanity in its evolution shift. And the last one was several 100,000 years ago. But each one was needed to bring forth what we now recognize as a human being and the opportunities. Because, yes, so in terms of answering the question, were we the result of just a process that was just Earth? The answer is no.
Mhm.
Have there been interventions? And I've answered that by saying, yes, there were 5.
Mhm.
Where I disagree is that, was it good or bad? Now, if you come back to the masculine and the feminine, it's recognizing there are those differences. And so that's part of us. And it's, you see, the human, as all of creation, is 50% light and 50% shadow. Why is that? Because we can't see the light unless we have the shadow. And so we need the shadow to see the light, and we need the light to see the shadow. And that exists across all of creation. So I don't accept the good and the bad words. There is shadow. It's all a different shade of gray. And so in that sense, it's how do we evolve? And I'm talking of creation as a whole, because there's no finite, it's infinite. And so each little choice that we make, we create a new expansion of evolution, of creation as a whole. And so that's really the creator, God, source, spirit, etc., is guiding the continuing process of evolution. Now, it's like that. If it's linear, it's like that. Well, that doesn't exist except up here. And so it's those different swings and roundabouts that enable not just humanity, but all of creation to evolve. And that's really the overarching aim of creation, to experience new.
So, yeah, I mean, the ideas of how it's happening and all that, I guess, is all debatable. But yeah, I totally agree with all the wisdom teachings that talk about this evolution of consciousness and all those sorts of things make total sense. I mean, of course, I mean, it even makes logical sense to me. Totally makes sense. Yeah, just curious, because I mean, there is that idea that, well, why are we so fearful and everything? Well, there is a survival mechanism inside us, so that's part of it. And then and you do have mass media and whatnot that they're like, well, what do they engage in? What keeps them going? Oh, they like fear more than anything. Okay, great. Let's give them a lot of fear. So I always say, if we want to change that, then we need to learn to get more present and stop responding so much to the fearful messages. That's how, if you want to see a shift in that, that's how it has to happen.
Because if just to go back for a moment to interventions and human evolution, where's the fear? The fear is residing in the oldest part of the human brain. Connection resides up here, the newest part of the human brain. So that's part of the interventions that have happened in terms of the physical structure of the brain. And as I'm sure you're well aware, Daniel, we have more than one brain. We have the heart and we have the solar plexus, which actually perform different functions. We look upon the solar plexus as just a digestive system. Well, it's not quite that. And then we look upon the heart as where we show all the emotion. So what have we been doing in terms of the patriarchy? Squashing the emotion. And actually, if you look at the physical structure of the human being, there are more neural connections between the heart and the brain, etc. And most of them actually flow from the solar plexus up to the brain. So it's not quite black and white in terms of the way we've been conditioned to think of the process.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's your brain controls everything and all that. Yeah, now it's well, maybe not. Maybe your gut's controlling everything, or it's always got to come down to one thing. Oh, this one thing's controlling everything. Yeah, no, it's none of that.
No, it's back to masculine and feminine. It's all mixed up, and so that's where do we have the feelings? It isn't just the heart; it's the solar plexus, where most people would say that I have felt it in my gut,
Right.
rather than I felt it elsewhere in the body. So that's then processing up and down to the brain and to the heart, etc. Mm-hmm. So it's never black and white.
Right. Right. Yes, thank God it is. So yeah, fear requires us in a sense to try to make it black and white, but the truth is that it's not black and white. So we can get out of, as we've been saying forever, out of fight or flight sort of energy, and we're going to do really well. So yeah, and we've definitely had a lot of that, even last century, right? So many wars, so much. It's like it almost had to get worse before it can start maybe getting a little bit better now, right? Starting to shift, still a lot of that going on, people being killed off and wars, but it seems like it's shifting at least. So hopefully we'll continue that evolutionary trend seems inevitable. And I appreciate everything you've been sharing today. I mean, every conversation is different. I love that we spoke about it at a higher level, like the deep personal stories are good, but also this higher level way of taking a look at it's been really cool too. So I really appreciate that. And just yeah, I mean, sounds like you've figured some things out, right? Like you're figuring things out on the balance of masculine and feminine and all this stuff. And yeah, well, maybe if there's something you could share with people before we wrap up, like what with everything we've said, all the clues are in there, but how can, particularly men, but probably women too, but like, how can men, really start to deepen this process, like deepen into the feminine, trust it more, and so-called balance it with the masculine energy? What, like, if you were to give like a specific tips or something, like what would you say?
The major point I would say, Daniel, is to observe yourself. So that, for example, you're in a conversation or something said, you might probably react to what's said, and you go, then all the belief structure you've been conditioned with comes out. Whereas if you observe yourself reacting to whatever it's been said or somebody's done, that then gives you the opportunity to stand back and say, actually, that's not what I feel. I feel something different. But it's, if you can step back from the reaction, that's when you can then create something new. And it goes back to what we were talking about a little while ago in terms of creativity. Creativity flows from being in the space. And so if I'm the observer, I'm not caught up in the story. I can create space in which I can create something. So maybe you create a new relationship with somebody, or maybe you create something new, or you act in a different way. That's all about initiating the new era that I see coming, rather than continuing with the old stories, which cause the issues that we see around us. So it's be the observer, Daniel.
Yeah. Okay. Great. The observer it is. All right. Okay. I would agree that that's a huge key. I mean, without that, and I would, you probably recommend this too, but like, yeah, mindfulness, breaths, and all that, and then, meditation.
Absolutely.
The foundation.
All of them the same. It's
Yeah.
making us stop
Yes.
and assess what's actually happening around us rather than the conditioning that is triggering within us. Because most of the conditioning, we don't think about it at all. It just happens.
Right.
I suddenly raise my voice, or I go to punch you, or whatever it is. That's the conditioning.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Just bang, it just comes right through. And when we get caught up in our energies, in our patterns, and we're not being really in a deeper connected energy, deeper space, right? In a deeper space, we're likely just respond in a very peaceful, measured way the vast majority of the time. And there's always a time for everything. But you typically, well, I'm grateful again for the conversation. You added a lot of background knowledge and wisdom, and all your, everything was great. And I just appreciate Gregory taking the time to have this conversation with me today.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure as always.
Okay. All right. Lots of love. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.